it was one of those things where I was like, I need to do something to stay sane. And I was like, I went back to the book idea, and something just really weird happened. I just kind of woke up about 6 o'clock in the morning and just kind of went, I'll open up the laptop and I'll write the first sentence. I wrote the first chapter. And I was like, that just felt good to write. Don't get me wrong, it took a lot of like rewriting and drafts and stuff, but I ended up with like a couple of pages, 2 or 3 pages, and I was there going, I just actually quite like this kind of almost brain dump onto the digital page on my laptop. I just enjoyed writing. The next thing you know, it was almost like, right, if I do this every morning just for like 45 minutes or so, who knows, I might have a book. And that's what I did. And I just did it every morning for about 45 minutes, like kind of planned it out a little bit more. What did I exactly want to talk about? How I was going to split it up. And then it became more of a thing. I was like, okay, this has become like a mini project that I need to finish now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of 2020. Cory here with Siobhán and Ben, and we're, as always, extremely excited to welcome back for part 2, Mr. Richard Shaw, formerly of Cradle of Filth. Now he's doing his own thing. He's playing with a lot of different bands. He's an author. He's got a book out, and he's also just one of our favorite guests to talk to.
Yeah, we get a lot more into, his writing process, what he's doing now, writing his book, which we talk about a lot. Some just really incredible tips about how to finish projects that you start and how to do them quickly. He really gives us a lot of insight into getting going on the things that you've been wanting to do for a long time.
Yeah.
Please like and subscribe.
Thanks for your input, Ben. Part 2 with Richard Shaw.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Benny Goodman, and I am so excited to be here with my cohorts in crime, Cory and Siobhán. But without further ado, I'd like to reintroduce someone that, if you've been following us since the beginning, our British ambassador, our guitar Jedi, our true friend that I honestly have to say, like, it's just such a philosopher and understander, if that's a word I'm going to make up. But just
I think philosopher is your favorite word.
Great dude, but also, again, author of this incredible book, which we'll get into. His name is Sir Richard Shaw. Hi, Richard.
Recently knighted by Lost Symphony.
I might wave like the Queen, actually. Like, that's how she does it.
Seems appropriate.
Yeah.
I was actually told he was knighted by Elton John, but the ceremony wasn't filmed for the sake of legality.
I'm going to put that on, I'm going to make my own Wikipedia page, and I think I'm going to put that on that.
There we go.
I actually already made one, so you can just change it if you want. It says composed
Awesome.
by Benny Goodman, at the Benny Goodman.
I'm going to be that guy who's in charge of his own Wikipedia page.
You should, and you should say Richard Shaw, parentheses, of Richard Shaw.
Yes.
Formerly Richard Shaw of Richard Shaw of Cradle of Filth.
To manifest the future.
Of the Richard Shawkestra. I'm going to
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
You know what's
Absolutely.
bullshit? I just looked it up, and you were listed on Wikipedia under the Richard Shaw, there's like 12 of them, and you're listed, but you're the only one without a link. It says Richard Shaw, British guitarist.
Oh.
I see it as an opportunity.
All I've ever wanted is my own link.
The blue, you need the blue link. You're just black text right now. You'll get there though, someday.
One day I'll be elevated from text to link, and I'll know I've made it.
Well, I'll tell you when you know you
New
haven't
life
made
goal.
it is when you happen to play keyboards and bass on a song that becomes internationally known, and then a Grammy Award-winning producer of the year says that he played those parts, and then you have to go on to Wikipedia to change it, that it's actually you, since you don't have a presence on Wikipedia because nobody cares about you because you're not the producer of the year, according to the Grammy organization.
If anyone
That's
wants
true.
to know any idea of what the hell he's talking about,
I want to know.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Ben and I worked with Ollie Herbert, the late great Ollie Herbert, a friend of ours, and contributor to Lost Symphony. He was in town working on Lost Symphony and also had to do some work for All That Remains. And he asked Ben and I to play on one of the tracks there, which we did. Now, Ollie, we love Ollie, but he didn't go and tell anyone in the band that we did this. Or if he did, he probably passingly mentioned it. So we did all this work and it came out on this record and everything. And then, you go on there and it's Howard Benson was a producer. So it's all credited to him for all the parts we did.
Can you tell us which song so we can go listen to it?
The Thunder Rolls.
The Thunder.
Okay.
It's a cover of Garth Brooks, and when we got it, basically the email was, "This just sounds like a bar band doing this." So I'm like, "Let's put some keyboards in it." It had no guitar solo, and I'm like looking at Ollie. I'm like, "You're in this band and there's no guitar solo." So immediately we put like keyboards, a guitar solo, and then like the bass was just not where it should have been. So Cory's like, "How about this?" And then we sent it back, and it was like, "Yes!" All exclamation points. And then when we got it back, they had cut up my keyboard part, put it through the entire fucking song, and I'm like, "What is this?" And then it came out, and we're like, "Who played on this?" And it's like Howard Benson.
So you kind of you sort of produced the song, and then it was reproduced based on your production.
It had gone through so many different iterations. Yeah, by the time they were done, even like the bass part, it changed halfway through. They decided to add another section, so you could just see the bass tone changes for like a verse.
And they added a singer
really
afterwards.
weird.
But I argue that if we release the version that Cory and I have on our computer, that it's fucking rad.
Yeah.
But you know, when I mentioned it to some of the bandmates, they're like, "Let's just leave that one alone."
I was going to say, I would argue that would be intellectual property theft, but it's fine.
It's on youtube.com/Cory Pays a Theft.
Yeah.
So wild though. I mean,
anyways,
you could be a session player or something, go in and play something, and then all of a sudden you hear the final product, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what?"
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a leap of faith you have to take with those things.
Did you hear about the song "Give Me Shelter" by Rolling Stones? That happened. So this girl back in like the 60s, she a female singer, she went in the studio, she sang on "Give Me Shelter," the very famous part. Children, that on the Rolling Stones. And she said she didn't realize until I think it was a Monday, she heard herself on the radio and it was a #1 hit. I don't think she got paid any money or anything, and she's just hearing herself on this Rolling Stones hit. And that's happened for years, where they basically just have people going in the studio. And it's surprise, like Sting says. Like if you watch our last episode, surprise, we're not going to pay you, and you're going to be on this #1 hit, and we're going to take credit for it.
Well,
That's the
speaking
biggest
of our
musical
last
surprise.
Right. Speaking of our last episode, so in part 1, we talked with Richard about his departure from Cradle of Filth and, moving on from that. And I think in this episode, maybe we can jump in and talk a little bit about what you're working on now, some of your goals for the future, your plans. Let's hear what is Richard Shaw of Richard Shaw doing now?
Well, I'm still teaching, doing my online lessons, doing guitar lessons, songwriting lessons. Anything, just talking about music and guitar related stuff online. I have a book, which is available on Amazon.
Fretboard and Songwriting Theory for Metalheads and Others.
That is the one. So there's that.
Which I can't reiterate, by the way, as someone that's read this, I use a lot of this in lessons that I do, simply because you've taken a lot of abstract concepts. So if you're nervous about music theory and you've been playing for a really long time, you're like, I don't want to take the blue pill. This is a good way to take the blue pill, wake up in the matrix, and actually understand what you're doing in a way where it's not musically overwhelming. Like, let's say talking to Siobhán, explaining your own music back to you.
I'm going to buy this for Brock, actually, because that's one thing he hates is I get so immersed in the music theory, and he's just kind of like, okay.
Didn't he take a lesson? Didn't you get him a lesson with Richard at one point?
Yeah, he had a few. I think he still needs to take his final lesson.
Yeah, there's one lesson left that he's not had yet. But you guys have been busy being rock stars. So, whenever he's kind of bored,
Brock is in desk building mode because he got a new, for his birthday, a new sort of mixing console thing.
Oh, what
so
did you
now
get? Sorry,
I got him that. That's okay. The S3. He got the Avid S3, yeah. So now he has to build an entire new desk for it. So
is that the thing we were talking about buying, the controller, Cory? The super cool one?
I don't remember having that conversation.
It's like... Isn't that
like what is that thing that we can expense that we're going to buy for Lost Symphony?
Yeah. But I would also like that. So I guess I'm going to have to go pay Brock a visit at some point.
Absolutely. Come on and check it out whenever. So, but yes, speaking of, he should be playing guitar also, but he is very much in desk building mixing mode. But yes, back to your book, which we were talking about before.
Yeah. So the book was just something I came out with last December, and it's doing pretty well. I'm surprised how many copies it sold, and it's reaching people all over the world. I mean, Cory and Benny already have their copy, which is it still freaks me out to see people in a different country holding up their copy of it, which is very, very cool. It's really
I instantly got 5% better at guitar the second I just held it in my hand. have yet to open it, but just holding
That
it.
that should be a testimonial on the page to sell
Exactly.
it.
You
one
put that
thing,
on an
actually,
Amazon review.
I used it. I used your book as knowledge because I wrote a riff for a band I'm working with, and someone says that's still got the blues by Gary Moore, and I'm like, no, it's not. I'm using a half diminish. I'm playing the Locrian, and I'm like, he's just playing a B7 flat 5, and I know that because I looked at this and I'm like, well,
The question is how accurate was that statement? We need a fact checker on this
the
show.
Locrian has 5 flats and it's diminished, half diminish, M7 flat 5 will be more pleasing to the ear to practice with. So I know that I was in the Locrian. But I think is the B7 flat 5 also in the Locrian? Does that make my whole argument stupid? Because I think it might be, isn't it?
Well, a B-7 flat 5.
A minor
Or
7. It
minor
was a
7
major
flat
7.
5.
It was a major 7 flat.
Yeah, right.
So I was right.
So, yeah. So there's the book. There's the teaching. I finished a tour with a band called King 810 back in May. They did a UK and European tour.
What kind of music?
Can we go to that real quick? So how did you link up with those guys? Because you mentioned you were basically right out with them right after the Cradle announcement.
Yeah, I mean, they called me because, ironically, the guy who got me the job in Cradle of Filth lived down the road from me when I was still living in Derbyshire in the middle of the UK. He called me. I've known him for years. When I got the Cradle job, it was like Cradle are kind of getting desperate. They need a guitar player. Without advertising, they need a guitar player, and he was their front of house sound guy. So, from the sounds of it, Cradle asked the crew if they knew anybody, just to spread the word out a little bit further than who they already knew. He recommended me. Obviously, I got the job. That's that. So I stayed in touch with him, even though he stopped working for the band a long time ago. And he was working with King 810. And he just kept asking me, because they seem to have pretty bad luck with guitar players. I don't know why. Like, something always happens where a guitar player's got to leave, but the drummer and the guitar player in that band always wear a mask anyway. So even if the drummer or guitar player needs to go, nobody really knows. And so they asked if I was available for a tour, and I said, well, I'm not, because I'm meant to be touring the States with Cradle, but in all honesty, I'm thinking of going. And they're like, okay, well, when you've made a decision, let us know. We're obviously happy either way. We don't want to put any pressure on you, because we'll give you a few weeks and just keep us in the loop. And then when I knew I was going to go, I just kind of text them back. Except that was again through, sorry, I backtrack. That was through the sound guy for Cradle who was working with them. He recommended me to them. They knew of me because of Cradle, and they always wanted me to be part of it, of the touring lineup, but it never seemed to happen. There was like quite a few tours where they're like, we need a guitar player, but I was already busy with Cradle. And this time I just went, you know what, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to tell Cradle I'm gone. So, and that was it. So I did that one tour with those guys. Hopefully there'll be more with them, but I don't think they've got any more tours booked at the moment. But if they want me back, I'll happily do it. I'm just pure session with those guys. I'm not writing or anything like that at the moment. But
I'm auditioning for your band.
That's a pretty cool mask.
Thank you.
This looks like a Hector Hellion mask, almost like something he would be wearing.
It's funny you say that because I had him do an interview, and during the interview I just kept changing what was on his face, and it was making the guy that was interviewing him die laughing, and Hector had no idea.
I'm curious about what you use this mask for outside of this context.
Okay, it's funny you say that because
very niche.
I walk my dog at night, and sometimes people
not
don't
where
see
my
you,
brain
so
went.
I have an LED. It's a whole hood thing, like a whole hoodie.
So to appear less scary at night, you wear an LED
that lights
hood.
up. I'll bring it down. You guys keep talking. I'll be back.
No, please don't.
I'm going to just to annoy Cory now.
Anyways.
Well, can you tell us? I mean, you referenced that tour. You know what it was like in the part one or the last episode we did with you last week. Can you talk a little bit more about that experience coming out of Cradle and then touring with a different band? You know, some of the venues, how it felt. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, it was awesome because I went into it knowing they're a smaller band, And like I said before, I don't care the size of a band as long as I dig the music and I get on with the people who are in it. I'm all up for it. It helped that my girlfriend Charisse is a huge King 810 fan. Like, they kind of became known over here because Slipknot and Korn did a tour together over in the UK and Europe, and King 810 were the opening band. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh my God, this is like the next Slipknot. And it was pretty crazy. And I always liked the music. Charisse got me into them even more because she's a diehard fan. And I just got chatting to the guys. I was like, I think we can make this work. Everything, even on the way to rehearsals, I was like, I think I've learned everything correctly. Like playing in drop A, playing the PRS baritone guitars that I've never played baritones before.
Brock's World.
Brock has the baritones, doesn't he? So I ordered a couple of baritones for the tour, and everything was kind of new and fresh. And I went into rehearsals going, I've learned everything as well as I can. And those guys like let me have free reign, but also at the same time they're like, oh, by the way, we do this slightly different than records. There's a lot to remember as what's going on. Like, I've got these little changes that are a little bit different to the record, but I still have free reign on this section. And it was very, very cool. And then we do the shows, and it's super fun, super organic. Everything just gelled well. I didn't have to worry about like how do I fit in to their live performance, because it just seemed to work organically. And so hopefully I'll do more tours with those guys, but I don't think they've got any more tours booked at the moment, but hopefully I'll go out with them again. And back to Benny.
Do you think I have a chance?
Well, for anyone that isn't watching, we'll turn on the YouTube cast because
or don't.
He's in
it's
some
fine.
sort or this looks like a rave outfit. He's got like a hooded white LED with scary.
I bought this for Starset shows, and then I realized that when you're walking your dog after dark, that this is a great way not to get hit by cars.
It's also a great way to scare your neighbors.
Oh, my neighbors are all like, "There's Ben walking his dog."
I don't even know where you would order something like that, but
I don't know. Maybe we need an endorsement. We can all wear them if they give us enough money.
It looks like a good DJ outfit.
I can actually take your face and put it on this. So I can actually take a picture of your face and then put it on my face.
Please don't.
So I
No
could do
thanks.
that.
Genuinely terrifying.
Genuinely.
That's some, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre weird shit.
Yeah, that's the 21st century version of a serial killer. I'm just gonna.
I digitally stole your face.
Yeah, I digitally stole it. I'm not gonna physically do it because that sounds like a lot of work. You know, but
Messy.
yeah.
Oh man.
Wow.
You mentioned, you wrote 50 songs pretty much immediately after leaving Cradle. Do you have any plans for that stuff? Like, when you write songs, you mentioned you kind of do it for yourself, but you have all this work here. Is there a Richard Shaw solo project in the works?
I would like to think there will be in the future.
Do you need a band? I'm free.
I kind of need a band.
All right.
In all honesty, that's what it is.
I'm volunteering.
I've got like 3 relatively well-known drummers who have said they're down for it if I ever did it. So I kind of approached them just because obviously if it's my own thing, I'll be having to finance the thing and just out of curiosity, what do you charge for this, that, and the other? And
Well, I'll tell you right now
yeah.
that if you want to send me tracks, I'll have Paul from Lost Symphony play to any of your songs, and I won't charge you anything, and then you can at least demo them, and then send them to
Offering
other
Paul
drummers
up for free.
Yeah, no, Paul don't you know he's on the side? He's on the sidewalk right now, going songs. Anyone want songs?
he's cool with odd time signatures, right?
Oh my God!
I think after Lost Symphony, he kind of has to be.
Yeah.
Or he just invents his own. That was one of my favorite things about recording Vivaldi. It was like clearly in a certain time signature. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Paul put his own time signature here.
Well,
and it's like a whole
what
new
Paul does.
interpretation.
Paul's great. He only sees one beat at a time. He's like Cartesian thought. You are neither the candle nor the burnt wax. You're just everything in between, moment by moment. So where you're thinking in like 7/8, Paul's thinking in 1/1, just at a time.
That's literally what my brother does as well. He counts everything in 1, and he's brilliant. I don't know how he does it. He'll be like, they're going 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I'm like,
Is this Robert? Robert?
Yeah, this is Robert, my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and he's a great bass player and a really good guitar player. He was bass player in one of my old bands. But I'd throw some, even just some 7/8 stuff, and he's like, "What are you on about? What the hell are you talking about 7/8? All music is in one." And I thought he was joking until he showed me how he counted this 7/8 section. I was like,
how do you count a
works.
7/8 section in
How
one? Just
wo-
1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1.
This must be a bass player thing, because funny you say that. When we played a couple festivals recently, we were opening for Mudvayne, and I got a chance to talk to the bass player, and he seemed like he fell into that category. He's like, "Oh well, yeah, I'm just somebody that can't really be tamed." He's like, "I land in certain places, but you can't. I'm just going to do what I want in between."
Well, have you heard
and
the
he's
drummer?
brilliant. He's incredible. No, this is the bass player.
Well, I'm saying, but Mudvayne's drummer is like a math metal. Like, he was one of the leaders of math metal, so he like used to come up with all this complex shit. So I'm sure that Rhino, the bass player, Orion, probably walked in and was like, "I don't have a fucking clue. I'm just gonna slap until it sounds right, and I fall on my feet." And I believe that, because if you listen to Mudvayne, that makes sense now.
Yeah. So anyway, could be a bass player thing. They just go one moment at a time.
But yeah, I'm just thinking of these songs that I've been writing. I've been writing whatever felt right. I've had a couple of friends just say, "You know what, like, you just want to write something for fun." And I did something with one of my old bandmates the other day where he was like, "You know what, I miss writing with you. Should we just do something for the hell of it? No pressure." And how did he describe it? He said, "I've got this idea for a song that, imagine if Tremonti and Alice in Chains got in a bar fight with Thin Lizzie." And that's how he described it to me. And I said, "Okay, I'll get working on it." And I like working to briefs like that. I was like, "That's pretty cool." And he says, "Just take your time whenever you got time." And bless Charisse, my partner, and Rory, my son, went to bed. And I was like, I picked up a baritone, and a couple of hours later sent him the song. And that was it.
That's
and
awesome.
And he woke up the next day going, "This is great." And the cool thing about him is he was like, that night he was like, "Okay, I'm going to go to work, but I'll get listening to it when I get back from work." I woke up the following morning to him putting down all the vocals and all the harmonies on it.
Oh my gosh.
And then the next
but
day,
that's
I was
how
like,
it's
okay.
done.
And then that's kind of what happened. And I think we've very nearly finished the song. And it's literally, this happened like, 4 or 5 days ago? And it's just literally every morning the other guy will wake up going, "Oh, there's the other parts. Cool, I'll just load that into my DAW. And okay, we'll put down some solos." Right, so he wakes up the next
that's the
morning,
best
now there's
thing.
guitar solos. And we've got, the song's pretty much done now.
Amazing. Wow.
He told me that brief like 4 or 5 days ago.
Well, you said on the last podcast that you were talking about when you were writing for Cradle of Filth, it almost became like, you're clocking in. And for me, like, I don't even release half of my tunes, 90% of the tunes I write, but it's always like the good stuff that I do that, again, nobody hears is exactly like that. I'll have the drums one night and I'm like, I'll stay up all night playing the bass or the guitars because I'm so inspired. And then by the next day they have vocals. That's for me how like true inspiration, like that's a barometer for me of how things are going well, because your buddy told you, he said, "You know what if Alice in Chains and Thin Lizzie and would you say Alice Cooper? What
And
was the third one?
Tremonti.
Tremonti all got into a bar fight." That is such a cool thing to like just sit like and try to make that work. And you stayed up, you worked on it, and then you volleyed it back to your buddy. He gets home from work and he's like, "I could go to bed, or I could respond musically to this." And I find that musical back and forth is kind of what, at least for me, is the most inspirational thing, is when you play something, you volley it back to someone, they go, "Holy shit, what a great idea." And then they work on it obsessively and send it back to you until you guys eventually 6 weeks later, after all the meth is gone, have to take a sleep.
It's kind of, that's how I like to collaborate. Like, there've been times, even in the Cradle camp, where I was like, "Why is this song taking 6 months to write?" Like, and I get it's a totally different style of music, and we've got choirs and orchestras and all that kind of stuff, so it is a little bit more lengthy. But even just getting the core track written, I was like, why are we overcomplicating this process? Why is it taking forever to write a song, which I think, in certain cases, could end up as a weaker song because we've spent too much time on it? Ironically, the last thing I did with Cradle, even weirdly enough, after I left the band, there were 2 songs left over from a previous record. That to me, there was very much a reason there was too much songs left over from a previous record. They just weren't good songs, and I could say that because one of them was mine, and I even said I don't think the song is good enough. We didn't finish it. Next thing I know, I've left the band. It's like, yeah, we finished the song. We just need your guitars on it. We'll pay you to play the guitars on it as a session member. I was like, well, that's funny because you weren't going to pay me to play the guitars on it when I was in the band. So, but
desperate times.
Well, then, hold on. You just brought up a good point. There's a very thin line between inspiration, perspiration, and desperation.
Yeah, and desperation. Yeah. So
I'm just saying.
They just finished the song because of a contractual thing. And so they're like, okay, so will you play guitars on it? I was like, even playing guitars on it, if I was being brutally honest, I'm like, and as I say, this is one of them's my song. I'm just like, this song just isn't good enough. But I think it's still going to be released either way. And to me, I don't know. To me, when I'm writing something, if it's not done, almost like within a certain time frame, I've moved on. And I think that's just the way I work. I'm very much, because once I get working and I'm excited about something, I can hopefully get something done pretty quickly. Like to me, when I worked on Premeditated Destruction, it was not to toot my own horn, but it came pretty quick, the solo, purely because what I had to work with was so good. And when it's like you say, the volleying thing, yes, I wasn't involved with the writing side. It's like, here you go, serve. Here's the song. It's like, fuck, how am I going to return this? Yeah. But sometimes you're thinking, shall I forehand it? Shall I backhand it? But with that, it was like, cool, here you go.
Or if you're me, you just pull your back and then fall onto the tennis court, and you're like, I can't play anymore.
You took out your lightsaber, and your buddy Mr. Danny Beardsley. Is it?
Yes,
did I pronounce it?
Danny Beardsley. Yeah.
Yeah, who's an incredible guitarist, and literally, I looked at Cory because this is one of the times. This is right at the time when I realized that people were like lip syncing guitar solos. I didn't know that was a thing, and hyper editing stuff. And I looked at Cory because I could never play that in a million years. I'm like, is this real? But then you're like, oh, but I have a GoPro of me playing it. And Cory and I actually had to pull it back up, and we're like, oh, he actually plays the whole song all the way through. Because first off, we'd never do that because we're not capable. I mean, I'm barely capable of thinking in one sections of what you did. And you, meanwhile, you played like a solid minute straight in like 13, and it's murderous. And I got to tell you that's when I realized that, you know, the creativity and the inspiration, and also the way that we all work together, is so important, and why we called you to do more tunes. Because I looked at Cory, and Siobhán and I and Cory all talked afterwards. So like, if he can do that with this song, there's literally nothing we're going to throw at him that he's not going to come back with genius. And every single time we've worked with you, you've sent us something. It's always like, that's all I ever wanted. Every time.
Thanks. But again, imposter syndrome's kicking in. And then and thinking, you could have found somebody to do it. like somebody else could have done it.
Bumblefoot wasn't returning my calls.
But it's okay, because our imposter syndrome trumps yours. So, you know, we think we don't, you know, deserve you. You don't think we deserve us, and then it's a cycle that keeps everyone humble and apparently creates good music.
I deserve all of this.
Like everyone except for Ben.
Just call me Axel.
Yeah, I deserve more. Yeah.
Yeah, but just going back to the writing thing, like I just find when I have a brief, even in Cradle, it was good. It was like it was almost like the more songs we wrote, the easier I found it was to write a song, because it was like, okay, we don't have this kind of song for the album. That's where I come in. I'm that guy who goes, okay, we've got this kind of song, this kind of song, this kind of song. We haven't got this. Have that. The more so, and I was that guy in Cradle. I think. And I've done the same. Like, there's a band I'm working with at the moment, and they're working with a producer, Ulrich Wilde, and we
had him on the show.
Ulrich's the man.
Ulrich Wilde, he's the greatest.
Yeah, he's. I've not actually spoken to him yet, so I'm literally going through the band. I'm writing the songs.
Tell him we say hi when you speak to him, please.
I will.
He'll be who are those guys?
But yeah, so I'm working with this particular band. They like what I did in Cradle. But they, bless them, they it's hard to say this without like blow my own trumpet, but they were like, even in Cradle, they knew I could do more than what Cradle was.
You're like the hottest stripper at the strip club. You're like, you could be somewhere better than this. You're the Julia Roberts of this pretty woman.
That's made me feel really good. Thanks.
Call me Richard Gere. You're not Richard. You're Julius. I'm Richard.
This is weird because they have a very special relationship in that film that we don't, Benny.
That they got paid a lot of money to be together?
There is that.
I'm not paying you like Julia Roberts got paid by Richard Gere.
Oh my gosh.
If you ever look at how much she got paid in that film, you could tell it was definitely the early 90s. Inflation's a killer, man.
Oh.
Like, it's like, how much for a week? I think it was like $3,000. It's like, yeah, it wouldn't be that now.
Yeah.
They're like, what's your Cash App?
Yeah. But I can't even remember what we were saying.
Oh, you were talking about Ulrich Wilde working on this project.
So
I got distracted by Julia Roberts.
Yeah, no, they knew there was more to Richard Shaw than Richard Shaw of Cradle of Filth,
and therefore I was the hottest stripper at the strip club. Thank you, Benny. So that's where it came from. So yeah, and they were like, we think you can lend something to our music, and again, a similar thing. We got talking, and they said they want to do 2 different kind of albums, and would I like to help write the 2 albums? And I'm 10 songs deep into that right now as well.
Amazing.
So it's just one of those things where when I know what to write and I write to a brief, it comes way easier than just picking things out of thin air. I'm not one of those writers.
What are you writing in the style of, or like, what's your premise or modus operandi with this band? Can we get into what the music sounds like? What are you writing?
I don't know how much to say without giving the band away.
That's okay if you can't touch on it.
Yeah. So, but they do say that they told me their influences. Obviously, they've got a couple of albums out already, and I was like, okay, I'll know what you're into. I know what you sound like. I know where you want to go. That's kind of enough. And then I just sent them a few tracks just to get started with, and they were like, they really, really liked what I sent. So I was like, okay, at least I know I'm on the right track. Let's go down that route. And then they would like WhatsApp me saying, we've got an idea for this kind of song. And I'm like, thanks. Because the second that happens, it's like I go away and do a similar thing where it's like, I've done it with them where they said, we want something guitar driven, like a clean guitar part, but could fit a horror movie. And then a similar thing where I was like, okay, clean guitar, horror movie. Rory went for a nap. I wrote the thing, send it off to them, and they were fine with it. They were really happy with it. So it's almost like I can work quicker the more of a brief I have. Can
I ask you a question about your book? If you're writing for a horror movie, what mode would you start in? Would you say when you think horror? Is that more of an Aeolian thing, or is that a Locrian thing for you? Maybe
lots
Dorian?
of tritones.
Phrygian would fit well with that, right?
All of the above is because I think it's no secret I'm a huge fan of modal interchange and all that kind of stuff. Like the last chapter in my book about chromatic mediants, like, because I could have gone further, and then literally all my proofreaders were like, don't go further than that. please don't go further than chromatic mediants. So I was like,
my whole life is having gone further. It doesn't serve you.
Yeah, so it was like, that's why the book's a little shorter than I was intended to. Literally everybody was like, that's enough. Probably save it for a different book. But
well, you're writing for metalheads. They didn't get to that chapter.
Yeah.
Save it for the niche people in the classical world that are studying like advanced music theory.
Yeah,
like, what's this Richard Shaw from Cradle of Filth? No, he hasn't played Beethoven.
But anyway, go on.
But no, like that was a similar thing. I came across this like little pattern. Some of it's like theory led, and some of it is just okay. Let's pluck something out of the ether. Let's see where my hands naturally land. Like certain keys have certain moods to it, so moods and modes is kind of how I kind of go with
like
it.
Alex Skolnick.
Like Alex Skolnick's podcast.
Yeah. So it's like it's
D flat, the saddest of keys.
No, it's D minor.
D minor.
D minor. It's the same one as Lick My Love Pump, isn't it?
My proofreaders.
I'm really sorry, Siobhán, that you were drinking at that moment. But
Thank God for Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap, like, is saddest of all keys, isn't it? D minor. Lick My Love Pump. And like we were talking about jazz in the previous episode. It's like just reminded me of a Spinal Tap quote about jazz. I don't know if you heard that one.
I love their thing about jazz. It's the greatest.
But their thing about jazz, it's like it's for musicians who are scared to play. It's like, why are they playing so quietly? Why? What,
well, hold on. It's like, my favorite
We
thing he
get
says
the authentic accent too. It's the best.
but my favorite part about it is he's like, but it's just wrong. It's not proper music. It's just people playing the wrong notes. It's just simple like that. Like, why would you want to play? That's why they're playing so softly.
And you can go to college now and learn how to play incorrectly. I don't understand it. But
I'm excited for that new movie. I'm sorry. I know they do all these remakes, but I don't. I have to. I'm so excited that they're doing a second Spinal Tap.
The world needs more Spinal Tap.
There's already a second Spinal Tap, though.
I mean, there's things online.
There is a Spinal Tap too. And I have it on DVD.
There is.
And that's why everybody talks about the sequel. It's like, there's already a Spinal Tap 2.
Maybe this was a UK exclusive because Americans, I don't think, know about this.
Is this like the Mandela effect?
Most people don't know about it. It talks about what happened basically after they broke up and then got back together.
What are you talking about, Richard? This does not exist. I just Googled
It does exist. It's called the Return of Spinal Tap. I swear to God, it is called the Return of Spinal Tap. It's half live concert and half spoof. So it's kind of done differently.
1992.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay, I remember that. So that's when they came out with that record that had like jazz, had Slash and Joe Satriani on like one track, and
I think so. Yeah,
I think they came out with an album, and then they made like a live album / they added some extra stuff, but it wasn't official part D.
I suppose not, but it's still a second Spinal Tap film, isn't it?
It is. I feel like this is a whole scene in the third Spinal Tap about how that should be the second Spinal Tap and how that one really wasn't a second Spinal Tap. Seems like something that Rob Reiner could be yelled at about.
Definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to it either way.
Yes, likewise.
Can't wait.
Well, either way,
you watch it. I recommend you watch it. There's a whole thing about like portable wine glasses and things.
It's almost hard to communicate with people that haven't seen Spinal Tap.
He became an inventor. He became an inventor. Nigel Tufnell did, and he invented like foldable wine glasses, and it's just there like folds it up, pours a wine, it's just leaking out the sides, and like passports for animals, things like that, you know. The amp capo, there's another one, the amp capo. He talks about the amp capo. If you want to change the key of something, but you don't want to restrict your hand motion, he puts a capo on the amp and you can change the key of it. Right, so so you've still got the full access, but you can change the pitch on the amp. So
they invented the drop tune pedal, is what you're saying?
Pretty much. And you watch that back now and you're like, that's not far off where we're at now. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It wasn't in 83.
Thank you for giving me something to watch later. That's phenomenal.
Well, before we ran out of time with you, I wanted to ask, so coming back to writing, but not so much about music, about your book. Can you tell us about how long it took you to write the book, or how, because I'm curious, you know, that seems like a very big project, and you did it. It's published, it's available. You know, what was the process like from, you know, your beginning ideas to, you know, getting it published? How did you go about figuring out how to distribute it? I mean, I think it's something a lot of people would want to know.
That's a good question, because it was an idea I had about 10 years ago, was to write this book, and it was like one of those, I'm just a guitar player, I don't write books. I love books, I love reading, I love educational books, I love all kinds of books, and it was like one of those things where a lot of my, obviously, I went to the Academy of Contemporary Music in Guildford in the UK, and a lot of those guys wrote for like guitar magazines and wrote their own books, and I just saw it as one of those things that only the elite can do this. You know what I mean? Like, the regular guitar player can't, you know? So I kind of just put it out my head, going, trying to get a publishing deal. It's not going to work. All this kind of stuff. Kind of, again, imposter syndrome. It's like, there's always a reason for why I shouldn't do it. Then lockdown happened. And it was like, oh. And I just finished the last Cradle album. Literally, we started recording the solos on the day that lockdown was announced in the UK. So we spent a couple of days doing solos, just me and the producer going, well, this is weird, but, you know, after a couple of weeks, when all this is over and done with, everything's back to normal. But it's going to be weird for the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing it was going to be 2 years. So I finished that, and obviously I had a lot of lessons in person. Like, most of my teaching was one-to-one in person. I was like, well, I can't teach them anymore. So I made the transition over to online, but I did find myself with a lot of free time because I didn't. It's not like all my lessons went online, like all of a sudden. So I was like, oh crap! Now I've got a lot of time off. What am I going to do? Can't go anywhere. And
Start
then
a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those things where I was like, I need to do something to stay sane, and I was like, I went back to the book idea, and something just really weird happened. I just kind of woke up about 6 o'clock in the morning and just kind of went, I'll open up the laptop and I'll write the first sentence. I wrote the first chapter, and I was like, that just felt good to write. Don't get me wrong, it took a lot of like rewriting and drafts and stuff, but I ended up with like a couple of pages, 2 or 3 pages, and I was there going, I just actually quite like this kind of almost brain dump onto the digital page on my laptop. I just enjoyed writing. The next thing you know, it was almost like, right, if I do this every morning just for like 45 minutes or so, who knows, I might have a book. And that's what I did. And I just did it every morning for about 45 minutes, like kind of planned it out a little bit more. What did I exactly want to talk about? How I was going to split it up. And then it became more of a thing. I was like, okay, this has become like a mini project that I need to finish now. Even if it never gets out, I kind of just, it's good to know that I've done it. And then when I finished it, it was one of those things where I was like, cool, I've written a book, I think. How do you publish one? So I did it the wrong way round, basically, instead of thinking, because I could have just done all that work just to keep myself sane, which is, I suppose, good enough reason to write a book anyway. But I was like, well, now it would be nice if people could buy it, you know, if this information might be useful to somebody. And then I just asked around a lot of my friends who have either released books themselves or people who have publishing deals. And everybody said, just go on Amazon, just do it yourself. Because unfortunately, how it seems to be now, especially with like guitar tuition book and just music tuition in general, no publisher will really touch you until you've got a bit of a track record on your own. I suppose it's like the music industry in general.
Record labels?
Yeah, you won't get a record label.
Yeah.
The record label will come along when you've already sold X amount of thousand copies
like,
completely by yourself.
We want a piece of that. We want a piece of what you're doing there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same with books. So I did what we said and just did a bit of research into how to publish it on Amazon and went through that. So I had to learn how to kind of format it. There's like a site on Amazon. Amazon's got its own site where you can format it, upload it, and then it was the best option for me because there's no upfront cost. Like there's a lot of places where it's like, right, you buy 500 copies of your book and then you have to try and sell them yourself. It's like, I'm not sure about that. Whereas Amazon, it's pretty cool. You just upload it.
Are these printed a la carte? Are these printed as they're...
They are printed.
Print on demand?
Print on demand.
Wait,
so you
Amazon?
order it. Through Amazon, so you order one as soon as somebody has ordered it.
They're making so much money.
Oh yeah,
Of course they
Amazon
are.
do everything. It's great.
So wait, if I want to write a book and I want to put it on Amazon, Amazon will print it on demand based on demand?
Yes.
Is there
Pretty
any
cool.
barometer of quality?
No, I don't think so.
Did you have to go through any sort of editing process? Because I'm curious. Because I mean, you know, this is an amazing story. But did you have any guidance on the editing of it, or formatting the chapters, or how to put it together?
I did. I was very lucky because I used to be a lecturer at a couple of music universities. Like between Cradle of Filth tours, there was like a whole year where I knew we weren't going to be on tour. I was like, what am I going to do now? And I happened to get work at 2 music schools. So they were involved in obviously music education and music books, and I had some of my old tutors. I got in touch with them, and yeah, when it came to editing, I kind of self-edited, but I had a lot of those people proofread it for me and suggest little things, and maybe the wording of this could be a little bit better, that can be shortened, you could probably go a little bit more in depth in this particular chapter or whatever it was. And it was just nice to have that because these are people who do work in music education and deal with these kind of books every day. So I was very lucky in that respect. And then once all the proofreaders were like, we're happy with that, and I was personally happy with it. It was like okay, publish, and then that's it. That is literally it. You just, like, I got my friend Ali to do the cover art, because on this Amazon site you can even go on the site and like you can make your own artwork on there, and it is super
Incredible.
all in one. But I got Ali to do it because he's really good
Do
at it.
they keep a disproportionate amount of the money? Like, cause like, how much do you make on a book if I buy it for $15? Do you get like 3 cents like Spotify?
I think it's a 70-30 split in my favor.
Oh, that's not
Really?
bad. With none of the upfront costs. That's great.
Yeah.
With publishing a book, were there any parallels to, because the creative endeavor, releasing music? Like you said, that like publish button, was that like the bounce to disc and send a mastering button? Like do you go back and look
Pretty
at it and go,
much.
I wish I fixed that hi-hat, but in the text.
But this is the weird thing about the book, because you have full access on the site. So if you want to change it, you can.
Oh,
Because
okay.
obviously they're not all done. If you notice
Right.
things, or you go, you know what, I'm going to make a second edition, I'm going to add some chapters, you technically can. It's pretty cool. But it will just say, Amazon will actually print it.
I wish you
Like,
could do that. I wish you could do that for music. To be honest,
I
like
know, right?
imagine
but if
second
you could,
edition release.
The way I see it, though, I see it the same as music, where it's like, if I could keep changing it, I would. I
Well,
kind of
that
like
happens.
having deadlines where it's like, right, I'm done on this day.
Have you listened to
That's
the Led
it.
Zeppelin live album? The song remains the same. It's different than it is if you get it on CD or DVD. And if you buy like Star Wars too, you know what I mean? Like Star Wars was one way, then there was a theatrical release. So like you can kind of have a revisionist history.
You can.
And I have actually a question. I actually wrote a book, and I was wondering if you'd write the foreword to it. I want to upload it to Amazon. It's called Mein Kampf Part 2, a 21st century guide to the modern political landscape.
Okay.
Do you want to write the foreword? Because you're already an Amazon published person, so you have like a track record, right? They could see the 94 copies I bought.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Corey's face. He's just like, no.
I'm just thinking of
Stop
how
it.
I'm going to cut
Edit
this
it all
entire
out.
part out while it's still making
Exactly.
sense.
Well, before you cut too much, let me ask.
Just as he reads that statement wearing a fucking Klan hood, it's like not
there's
going
just-
well in this episode.
No, there's just too much to get canceled for here, so we're gonna dismiss that.
Forget that one.
No, but really quick. So, in terms of the content, though, when you had the idea for when you sat down to start writing, were you pulling from experience having taught students, or things that you wish that you could explain better in lessons? Like, where did the inspiration for the content come from primarily?
Two sides to it. There's the navigation of the fretboard, the kind of fretboard theory. Like, how do I know this stuff, but where do I know where to go? Why am I always shackled with these set scale shapes? Whereas I was almost taught, like, here's how a pianist learns a scale. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, here's one octave, there you go, repeat it in the next octave. Why aren't guitar players taught like that? Because that's cuts out a lot of learning that I felt was never that needed, to be honest with you. Like, years of learning scales that I was like, I wish I'd learned this method sooner. And I was like, why has nobody put it in a book yet? like not that I'd seen. And then I am obsessed with songwriting. Yes, I'm a guitar player. I think it's the Mark Tremonti side of me. I don't know, the Mark Tremonti
Well, it's-
fanboy here. Where
I'm going to interrupt you for one time because I
Well, Ben,
just
we only
edited
got
Mark
a minute left, so
Well, this is Mark Tremonti. So Mark Tremonti said the exact same thing. I was just editing a thing when we had Mark on the show, and he said, if you listen to some of his songs, he goes, I'll do an arpeggio, but then I'll keep going up the arpeggio, and he explains it like it's some weird concept. And when I do that on the piano since I was 6, and it's the same thing that you explain in this book. Your buddy Mark said he discovered that later in life. Like, he's like, oh, you can go beyond that and then continue going up or down. It tells you right in your book, and you're saying it right now. And then you said Tremonti, and Tremonti literally, I think he read your book.
Wouldn't that be nice if he did? But no, like, the way I see it, like, I got excited about songwriting even from a young age. I was like, why does this sound so cool? Again, like we were saying, like, find the cool part of the song where you go, that really excites me. What is going on? I kind of just became obsessed with that, and that's how I got into theory. But it wasn't until I was at university where it was explained in a way that as guitar player could get it. It's like, great, I know the theory, but how do I put it on the instrument? And that's kind of what my book was talking about. And then once you get how to find it on the guitar, it's like, okay, let's push this further. You like the sound in this Beatles song? This is why it works. You like this thing in this Queen song? This is why it works. You like this thing in this ABBA song? This is why it works. This
Amazing.
John Williams motif that he keeps going back to, but how does he change it? This is why it works. You can do it too.
It's a great perspective on teaching.
On the guitar.
Yeah, those ideas.
And you give great references of songs, like, so if you don't understand what it actually means, you'll say a song, hey, this is what this sounds like, and you can immediately hear it in your head without having to be in a room with you, which I thought was just
It's like ear training, yeah.
Yeah, so we can't recommend this book enough. We'll have a link to purchase the book in the description. And like I said, just holding it, you get 5% better at guitar. If you open it, who knows what's going to happen. But
6%.
6%, an extra percent. Yeah.
And just like the way he wrote
worth it.
you have to just open it and read the first sentence, and then you'll actually get through the first chapter.
Exactly.
Just open it and get going.
Richard, it's been awesome. Like we've missed having you on the show. We appreciate you taking the time, and obviously you're welcome back anytime. You know, I know with all the free time you have, you're welcome to come hang out with us whenever you'd like.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. I've missed chatting to you all, and it's been great. And it's been a bit of a therapy session.
A
But also
cathartic
it's been
episode.
cathartic, but at the same time, it's been a lot of fun. And I expect like a replica of Benny's costume in the post for us all.
Absolutely. For the
Next
next
episode,
time.
all of us in the dark.
Next time we'll come in full costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Guys, make sure you go check out the book. We'll have the links. Check out Richard on social media. Keep up with him. Grab some guitar lessons, and we'll keep an eye out for the new music you have. Please keep us in the loop, and come back anytime. Visit 2020-d.com. Like and subscribe so you know when the next episode's coming out. And we'll catch you guys next time.
It's one thing to kind of, try some songs out and stuff in front of some friends and, small kind of crowd. But, some of the places we played were pretty big and there was a lot of people there. So I found myself just standing there looking at a sea of people with no one else on stage but me. And I was like, please, God, somebody give me some whiskey to numb the pain. Like fast.